I made a discovery about myself. I don't know when it started, but suddenly I realized that whether it's a text or an email or even a phone message, when I'm signing off on almost any of them, I've been using the phrase, stay in touch. And I think when I use that phrase, I use it very sincerely. I mean, stay connected. Let me know how you're doing. But I find the irony of the whole thing is I'm saying stay in touch during a time when we're probably doing less touching than we have ever before. In fact, I looked back last year when we had the shelter in place that began about the third week of March. I went for about 9 or 10 weeks without ever physically touching another human being. I live alone, and normally, I would be holding somebody's hand if I was praying with them or shaking hands or whatever it might be. But during that time, touching no one. And yet I was in touch with lots of people. I was on the phone a lot. I was FaceTiming people. I was still having Mass, and so we were streaming live Masses on a regular basis. Stay in touch means, yes, touching someone, but it also means staying connected. It means somehow giving focus to another person. So when I say stay in touch, let's continue to relate. I want to be part of your life, and I invite you to be part of mine. Stay in touch. The gospel today talks about Jesus being in touch, literally and figuratively. Literally, he was in touch. He took the hand of Peter's mother-in-law. Beautiful healing story. Raised her up. She was able to get out of bed. But then it goes on and says he healed all these other people. And it's one of those amazing stories where you have the individual and then you have the big group. Have you ever noticed? We need both. We might hear a story, for example, about the earthquake in Haiti back a few years ago and hundreds of thousands of people dying. But for me, it was all about one person that I knew who worked at a hotel down there, and I had heard that that hotel had been destroyed. That's where my mind was. We think about the individual, we think about the large group. Both really matter. Or even with the time of COVID, when we know there's like 460,000 Americans who have died of COVID, and that's an overwhelming number. It's more than most of us can fathom. And yet our minds go to those people that we know right here in this parish who have died. We need the individual, we need the large. We need to respect the great numbers, but we need the individuality. And Mark does that so beautifully in this passage. He talks about the mother-in-law of Peter in a very personal way. Then he also says all those other people came to Peter's door. It was after sunset. And it makes you wonder how late into the night were they coming? And what was he doing? He just continued to reach out to them. I would like to think that he was in touch with them as much as he was in touch with the mother-in-law. In other words, he gave each one attention. I remember somebody describing one of our priests, Father Bill Richter, who has been gone now for a number of years. And he was a wonderful guy and one of the people that I emulated in my own life. But this person described Father Bill as saying, anytime anybody talks to that priest, he treats you like you're the only person in the world. He's able to give you that much attention and focus. I think that's what Jesus did in his healing. Yes, he did have the power of healing, but also reaching out to somebody else and showing that you care for them, compassion, that has a healing quality as well. If Jesus healed, and we are to be disciples of Jesus, we have to heal. Again, maybe not in the same way, but we have to be able to give attention, to stay in touch with other people. And what that means is, first of all, it means we have to let go a little bit of our own agenda. What's going on in someone else's life, at least for the moment, is more important than what's in our own life. It also means that we have to learn to listen. We listen to words, but we also listen to the message from their heart. And then we have to learn the skills of showing compassion. And even when we can't physically touch, we can be in touch. We can care. We can focus on the other person. I had an associate pastor at my previous parish who had just been ordained. And after about 3-4 months, one day we were talking, and he said, Herb, I've learned. It seems everybody's got something. I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, it seems like no matter who I talk to, they've got some issue they're dealing with. Some are worried about their kids. Some are worried about health. Maybe the marriages are struggling. Everybody's got something. Maybe it's finances. Maybe they're still grieving. And I don't know if I agree that everybody has something all the time, but everybody has something. In that first reading today from Job, Job says, life is a drudgery. By the way, the end of that reading really makes you feel good when he says, and I'll probably never see happiness again. The word of the Lord, the good news. But sometimes we feel that way. Jesus is a healing Savior, but he also works through us to do that healing. And sometimes we are the ones that he's calling upon to reach out to the people around us. Life can be hard, but we have to focus on one another. We have to learn to stay in touch.